At exactly 3:17 a.m., the dead patient in room 406 pressed the call button. The nurse on duty swears she saw it blink. But here's the problem. Room 406 was sealed in 1996 after 13 unexplained deaths in 1 month, and no one has been allowed inside since. Until tonight. Black Ridge Medical Center stood abandoned on the outskirts of Cleveland, closed in 2003. Official reason? Structural damage. Unofficial reason? Too many bodies. That's what locals say. Maya Thompson wasn't afraid of rumors. 27 years old, travel nurse, recently transferred from Chicago after her younger brother Ethan died during what doctors called a routine procedure. She stopped believing in the word routine after that. Now she needed money, and Black Ridge, temporarily reopened as a low-budget overflow emergency facility, was offering triple pay for night shifts. No one else wanted them. Her first night, 11:58 p.m. The automatic doors groaned open like something waking up. Inside, the hospital lights flickered at uneven intervals. The receptionist desk was empty, but the sign-in sheet had one fresh signature. 3:17 a.m., Dr. H. Walker. Maya checked the clock. It was 12:01 a.m. Why would someone sign in 3 hours in advance? Security guard Leonard Briggs met her in the hallway. "Couple things," he said without eye contact. "Don't take the elevator after 3 a.m. Don't respond to overhead announcements unless you hear them twice. And if a patient in 400 wing presses the call button," he paused, "don't answer it." Maya laughed lightly. "Is this some kind of orientation joke?" He didn't smile. People who answered didn't finish their shifts. He walked away before she could respond. Room 212. An elderly woman named Mrs. Klein. Oxygen mask. Weak pulse. She grabbed Maya's wrist suddenly. "You hear it yet?" "Hear what?" "The rolling." Maya frowned. "What rolling?" Mrs. Klein's eyes shifted toward the hallway. "The gurney." Silence. Then, far down the corridor, a metal wheel squeaked. Slow, rhythmic, coming closer. Squeak, drag, squeak, drag. Maya stepped into the hall. Empty. The sound stopped instantly. Behind her, Mrs. Klein whispered, "He's looking for someone new." 2:58 a.m. The hospital felt colder, like the heating shut off. Maya sat reviewing charts when, "Code blue, room 406. The intercom crackled. Her blood ran cold. Room 406, the sealed room. She waited. Silence. No second announcement. Remember the rule, only respond if you hear it twice. 30 seconds passed. Then, "Code blue, room 406. This time louder, longer, more distorted. The lights flickered violently. Leonard's voice suddenly came over the radio. "Stay where you are." Too late. Maya was already moving.
The elevator doors opened slowly. Even though she didn't press the button, the inside smelled like rust and antiseptic. She hesitated. The stairwell felt darker. The elevator felt wrong. Then she remembered. Don't take the elevator after 3 a.m. She checked her watch. 3:16 a.m. The elevator dinged. Floor 4. The doors slid open by themselves. And at that exact moment, her watch turned 3:17.
The hallway was darker than the others. Lights flickered like dying candles. At the end of the corridor, room 406. The door was slightly open. A faint red glow blinked inside. The call button. Maya stepped closer. The nameplate on the door still read, "Patient Harold Walker. Admitted October 13th, 1996. Status deceased." Her stomach dropped. Dr. H. Walker, the name from the sign-in sheet. Slowly, the call light blinked again. Once, twice, 3 times. She pushed the door open. The room was empty, bed stripped, dust thick in the air. But the monitor beside the bed, flatline screen, suddenly flickered. A heartbeat appeared. Beep, beep, beep. Then, on the pillow, a dent formed, like someone just laid their head down. Maya backed away, her breathing shallow. The monitor's beeping grew louder. She turned to leave and froze. In the mirror across the room, she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a tall man in a 1990s surgical gown, face pale, eyes hollow, skin stretched tight like wax. He leaned close to her reflection, but when she turned, nothing there. Back to the mirror, he was inches from her neck, whispering something. She couldn't hear it. Then, suddenly, the mirror cracked down the center, and every overhead light went out. Darkness swallowed the hallway. Emergency red lights flickered on. The exit door at the end slammed shut. She ran toward the stairs. Locked. Elevator? Gone. The doors weren't even there anymore. The hallway seemed longer, stretched, like it was breathing. Behind her, squeak, drag. The gurney, closer, much closer. She didn't look back, because Mrs. Klein's words echoed, "He's looking for someone new." Back inside 406, the heartbeat monitor flatlined again. But something was on the bed now. A patient file, with her name on it. Patient Maya Thompson. Admitted 3:17 a.m. Condition critical. Cause replacement required. Replacement? For who? The signature at the bottom read, Dr. Harold Walker. Date signed, tonight.
Maya froze in the hallway when the security monitor above the nurse station flickered to life, because on the screen, she could clearly see herself standing inside room 406, staring at the mirror, even though she hadn't moved an inch from where she was. And the version of her on the screen slowly lifted her head and smiled. Panicking, she rushed to the hospital computer to check the system logs, but before she could type anything, the database refreshed by itself. Under current patients, her name appeared in flashing red letters. Maya Thompson, admitted 3:17 a.m. Condition critical. Replacement in progress. The timestamp was updating in real time, counting down.
Leonard finally broke. His voice trembled as he admitted that in 1996, Dr. Harold Walker wasn't responsible for 13 mysterious deaths, at least not in the way people believed. The bodies were found empty, like something had been taken from them. Walker had discovered a way to trade places with death itself, but every trade required a living replacement to keep whatever was inside room 406 contained.
The overhead lights began to flicker again, but this time Maya felt something worse. Her heartbeat slowing unnaturally. She pressed 2 fingers to her neck, weak, uneven, and at that exact second, the heart monitor behind the nurse station powered on by itself, matching her pulse perfectly. Every time her heart skipped, the machine skipped too. A metallic screech echoed down the corridor. The elevator doors slid open at the far end of the hallway. Inside was a gurney, a body covered with a white sheet. Slowly, the sheet slipped down just enough for her to see the face. It was her, pale, lips slightly blue, eyes half open. Around the toe was a tag that read in black ink, Maya Thompson, replacement complete, 3:17
The
a.m.
intercom crackled softly, but this time it wasn't distorted. It was calm, clear, almost polite. "Thank you for your cooperation, Nurse Thompson," the voice said. "Your shift officially ends at 3:17 a.m. Maya looked at the clock on the wall. 3:16. The second hand ticked once more, and somewhere behind her, she heard the squeak of a gurney wheel moving closer.
When the elevator doors closed, Maya was still staring at her own lifeless body inside. But when the doors opened again just seconds later, the gurney was empty, and behind her, she heard her own voice whisper, "You're standing in my place." She ran to the security office and rewound the footage, only to discover that for the past 20 minutes, the cameras showed just one nurse on duty, calmly working, smiling, charting patients, while the real Maya watched herself from outside the screen. Desperate, she tried calling 911, but the operator on the other end spoke in a familiar tone. It was her voice, reporting that an unstable patient named Maya Thompson is hallucinating on the 4th floor.
The mirrors throughout the hospital began reflecting something slightly delayed. Her reflection moved half a second slower than she did, and sometimes it didn't copy her movements at all. In room 406, she finally came face to face with her double, pale, emotionless, wearing her badge, and the duplicate calmly explained that only one version of her could leave the hospital alive at 3:17 a.m. The wall clock ticked louder and louder as both Mayas stood in silence. 3:16 a.m. The lights cut out. A scream echoed through the corridor, and when power returned, only one Maya was left standing. When the lights came back on after the scream, Maya slowly realized something was horribly wrong. The hospital no longer felt abandoned. Monitors were running, patient rooms were occupied, distant voices echoed through the halls. But every patient she passed had the same blank expression, the same hospital wristband date October 13th, 1996. Like the building had dragged her backward into the night everything first
Leonard appeared
began.
at the end of the corridor, but he looked younger. Cleaner uniform, no gray in his beard, and when she called his name, he stared through her as if she were the ghost, whispering to an unseen doctor, "We found the next one. She doesn't remember the previous cycle."
In the records room, Maya uncovered a hidden wall safe filled with identical patient files, all bearing different names over the years. But every photo attached to the charts slowly shifted into her face when she stared at them long enough, revealing the horrifying truth. The hospital hadn't been choosing random victims, it had been choosing versions of her.
Room 406 no longer looked abandoned. It was pristine, active, surgical lights blazing overhead, and standing beside the bed was Dr. Harold Walker, not decayed, not monstrous, but disturbingly calm, explaining that the hospital itself was alive, feeding on fear, sustaining itself by repeating one perfect moment at 3:17 a.m., over and over, trapping a soul each cycle to keep the doors of death sealed shut.
Walker stepped closer and revealed the final secret. The replacement wasn't about switching bodies, it was about switching awareness. One Maya would awaken outside the hospital, believing she survived, while another would remain trapped inside 406, slowly forgetting who she was until she became part of the building. A whisper in the intercom, a reflection in the mirror, a hand pressing the call button.
The clock on the wall began ticking violently again. 3:16 a.m. Walker leaned in and softly asked, "Do you remember how many times you've already chosen to leave?" The hallway lights flickered. Memories that weren't hers flashed in her mind. Dozens of shifts, dozens of screams, dozens of endings. And as the second hand moved toward 3:17, Maya suddenly realized she had stood in this exact spot before, many times. As the second hand trembled toward 3:17 a.m., Maya felt every memory from every cycle crashing into her at once. Dozens of nights, dozens of screams, dozens of versions of herself begging to leave. And she finally understood the truth. The hospital wasn't trapping her. She had been choosing to come back every single
Dr.
time.
Walker calmly revealed that the first cycle began in 1996 when Maya, not as a nurse, but as a frightened patient, died on the operating table at 3:17 a.m. And in that fractured moment between life and death, she made a desperate choice to survive, creating a loop that required a replacement version of herself to stay behind.
Room 406 began to distort around her. Walls breathing, monitors screaming, mirrors reflecting countless Mayas reaching out. And Walker whispered that tonight was different, because this was the first time she remembered everything before the clock struck 3:17. The elevator doors opened one final time, revealing two paths. Inside the elevator stood a terrified new nurse arriving for her first shift, while behind Maya on the hospital bed lay another unconscious version of herself, and only one soul could walk out when the clock finished its final tick.
For a long moment, Maya looked at the new nurse's innocent face, confused, unaware. And instead of pushing her inside or running for the exit, Maya slowly turned back toward room 406, accepting that the cycle would only end if no one new replaced her. The clock struck 3:17 a.m. The hospital went silent. Morning sunlight poured through the windows as if nothing had ever happened. Black Ridge Medical Center was found permanently abandoned the next day. But years later, on certain nights in Cleveland, at exactly 3:17 a.m., a red call button still blinks inside room 406. And somewhere in the darkness, a nurse's voice gently whispers, "Your shift isn't over yet."